Hello everyone, my name is Siva Kumar and I'll be walking you through next 60 minutes on a very interesting topic in Umoja, the past, now and the future. Let's start with the basics. This is what is your legacy system as it stands now. It could be IMIS or any other system where the things are pretty clear and it was serving the purpose of the organization for the last 15 years. With the new invention of Umoja, this is what we are going to provide at the end of the complete rollout of Umoja solution. And in today's discussion, what we are going to talk about is the whole implementation cycle, the past and the current, the now and the future state, and how it relates to people like me and you and to the organization as such. Let's start with the past, which is the first of the three-part series. And to do the past, we need to understand the building blocks. The building blocks construct the foundation of what we are trying to accomplish by utilizing this application rollout. The first one is we have to understand the United Nations as such, we are a public sector organization, which means our business is different than any other private sector, and our benchmarks and KPIs are different, and our mandate is different than a profit-making private sector organization. And number two, the SAP, which has been chosen as a product for the Umoja implementation, is a product itself. It's a out-of-the-shelf product, and it's a leading ERP software in the world. And companies such as IBM, Apple use SAP to run their business, and more than 8,500 public sector implementation run on SAP, and also 54% of UN member countries use SAP as their solution. The next major bottom line is Umoja is all about change. Umoja is not a technical project, as we all know, and it involves people, processes, and organization, and it's all about how we are going to do the change. So let me give you the basics of what is different for public sector. Let's take into the organizations such as Apple, Coke, Dell, and Amazon, which are all purely profit-oriented private sector organizations. They are one of the top Fortune 500 companies, and their core business model or the process is called order to cash. It starts like this. They stock the item, and when they receive the customer order, they do the delivery, shipping, and the transport to the customer's location, and they do the billing part of the business, and they get the cash. So what they do is the process is all about order to cash, and if it involves a manufacturing company, they produce in stock, and if they do not involve manufacturing companies such as Amazon, they basically buy and stock, and the whole cycle starts from order and ends up in cash. So they have a very specific set of business processes which constitute each and every segment of this business process. So when we talk about the core business of a public sector company such as UNICEF or New York State or WFP or MIT as a college or educational institution, our business model is exactly the reverse. Instead of generating the cash at the end of the business process, we get the cash as the very first process. So we get grant, and we do the budgeting, and we do the allocation to individual projects and processes, and then the commitments are made, the requisition followed by order, and we give the vendor the payments, vendor or the staff or whoever it is, and then we do the reporting to our General Assembly as well as to our donors. And Umoja is nothing but the same. The Umoja follows the public sector organization. So because of which the public sector organization, the SAP, they themselves has built an application that will fit into public sector modules. The other building blocks which we kind of ventured into are the internal controls. The United Nations, as such, we have a very specific internal control framework which dictates the delegation of authority, and it also comes up with the enterprise rules and also the segregation of duties. And each and every process which involves the financial aspect will have to have two levels of authorizations, which is certification as well as the approval. And we have the transparency. We want to build a homogeneous process across the platform. We want to have the operational and management reporting, and then uh, all budgeting, allocation, requisition, and expenses are all recorded and reported and are audited in the system. The last one is the governance. We have the management reporting. We have the KPIs and dashboard to make sure that our business processes are running as per our design or as per the set practices. And we have a continuous monitoring and internal audit. And also we are IPSAS compliance. With this background, let's go how this Umoja journey started. It all started with a blueprint when two things were clear. The software application was SAP, which is being used, as I said, which is being used by many of the Fortune 100 private sector companies. And the core business process of United Nations were mapped using the benchmarked practices which have been established in SAP. This was the beginning of the long journey. On a macro level, there were 12 different big modules of SAP used in finance and source to acquire solutions. And also, with the invention of Umoja extension, we introduced 8 other core function modules which take care of personal management, benefits, payroll, org management, time, and travel management. And Umoja evolution started something on July 2012, where we went live with the pilot in UNIFIL in Beirut. And then the journey started with in 2013 with the Umoja solutions going to the cluster 1, cluster 2. And in June 2015, we went live with integrated Umoja component for cluster 3 entities. So as you see, the foundation laid the foundation and the extension was built on it, and an integrated solution seamlessly integrates the foundation extension, and it went into the customers for deployment, our constituents for their deployment. And also make a note, the user base has evolved or exponentially increasing from 400 users to 7,000 plus users after cluster 3, and which is going to exponentially grow for our cluster 4 components. We need to learn a lot of lessons. The lessons learned is based on the evolution. Any project, for that matter, any project or an organization, when there is a rollout of a transitional rollout, the growth increases tremendously. The growth of the project reach grows exponentially. And then as the project grows to more and more constituent, the complexity increases in the same pace. So we were more complex in cluster 3 than when we were in the piloting the project in UNIFIL. But at the same time, what is happening is the percentage of high knowledgeable staff comes down proportionally to the number of users which are going to be exposed to the system. And that brings in what is called the midpoint, which is called the chaos point. So when the percentage of high knowledge staff goes down and it kinds of goes below the complexity level, the chaos starts building. The chaos and errors spike, and the project has become too complex to run with this talent level. And to mitigate this, what we do is we start building what is called processes and procedures. So the process and procedures, which are very low in the initial part of the business because of the high knowledge staff, it started going to overwhelm the complexity, meaning for each and everything, the processes and the procedures are going to be extremely complex, even it defeats the complexity of the issue itself. If you want to put this in perspective in 3 quadrants, and this is what has happened. The first quadrant, we were in the pilot and the clusters 1 and 2, and now the chaos part is the cluster 3, and cluster 4 and beyond, we are going to have more and more issues and more procedures to mitigate those issues. So this gives you a perspective of what we are going through as a team into this project journey. With that perspective, I'll take you to the present. The present, I just want to I'll explain you how the user management, from the user management will diversify into all the other aspects surrounding the user management to explore each and every part of this process and the project in detail. The user management in Umoja is nothing but any other user management in any other system. We have a set of authorization, And the authorization is nothing but a set of privileges where a person who have been assigned can do. But if you look at closely, any system for that matter, you will have only three types of transactions. This is the three patterns of transactions. A drafting pattern where you will be creating and managing a transaction, and there will be an approving transactions, and then you will have monitoring and managing transactions, which will be for dashboarding and operational reports. In an Umoja, the set of privileges have been controlled or put into a box called an enterprise role. And an enterprise role is what being assigned to the users. For example, the enterprise roles are accounts payable user, HR partner all, travel and shipment administrator, time manager, cashier, etc. And as always, the complete enterprise role catalog is available on iSeek, because as we go through this journey, there are certain roles which are getting added, there are certain roles which are getting deleted, and there are certain roles where the contents are constantly modified. The basics of the role assignment is like, from the enterprise role catalog, you have a set of enterprise role and through which we assign it to the users, and which you must have done as a part of your user access mapping. So I'll take you to the next level of understanding how this works in the system internally. When I have an enterprise role called HR partner all, as I explained, it is homogeneous. It is well within the organization. You have only one HR partner all as an enterprise role. When I assign an HR partner all to a UNON staff member and a UNSOA staff member, UNSOA being a part of the peacekeeping mission, the HR partner role provides the access to the staff member assigned in each and every entity, the transactions or the set of authorities to execute in the system. Then you might ask, how come the UNON HR partner will be able to manage the UNON staff member, whereas the UNSOA HR partner might be managing the UNSOA staff member? And there we introduce what is called a structural authorization. The basis of structural authorization is when a role is assigned to an end user belonging to an entity, not only we assign roles, we also assign the organizational entity where they will be executing those enterprise roles. In this example, UNSOA end users who are assigned with the HR partner role will be assigned to an UNSOA node in the org unit, so automatically they will be the people who will be responsible for managing the staff member under UNSOA. Same case with UNON. This happens for the extension part of the business. For the foundation part of the business, exactly the same thing, but it is called control points. The control points are the business area, fund, cost center, and fund center. For example, if you have an FM user in UNON and they can only do the UNON, so the business area belonging to UNON is assigned to them, so that constrains the users can do all the FM related transactions only within that business area. So let me explain you the dualism, because this is more critical for you to understand, because this reflects not only the user access mapping, but also for the ongoing user access provisioning model. The user access dictates what you can do, which is explained by an enterprise role, and the structural authorization of the control points exercise what you can do, and that is defined by the structural authorization. With these two constructs, if I have a role and a structural authorization or the control point assigned to a user, they can do all the transactions related to them, and all the workflow will come to them based on their assignment, and also they themselves as a user can be eligible or able to do their own self-service transactions. I'll give you a brief of the Umoja modules. In the foundation side, you have a financial accounting, costing, cash management, financial management, and on all the other side, you are source to acquire, receipt inspection, and equipment management. And on the extension side, you have a PA, personal administration, time, benefit, travel, OM, payroll, and also has two distinct things, employee self-service and manager self-service, which we will talk a bit later. Okay. Up to this, the now part, or the context part of the business is clear. Now I want you to take it to a next level. For that, we need to understand a little bit more. I want you to introduce to another movie called Interstellar. I don't know how many people have seen that movie. This movie is all about a crew of astronauts who travel through a wormhole in search of a new home for humanity, unable to go through the higher dimensions, unable to view the whole picture. I would strongly recommend if you have an appetite for a good science fiction story. Okay, back to our topic, where I'll try to explain the complexity within our subject, Umoja project, by drawing an analogy to the dimensions. If you talk about the dimension, the physical dimensions in the whole world, there are, like, you can say, single dimension objects, 2-dimension, 3-dimension, and 4-dimension. The first dimension object is a line, where you have only the length. The second dimension is a square, where you have a length and a breadth. And the third is the cube, which is the length, breadth, and width. And the fourth one, which includes the time, is called tesseract. A tesseract is an object which is like a fourth dimensional object. It is exactly how cube is to a square, tesseract is to a cube, to explain the fourth dimensions. So in Umoja, I'm going to take you to the fourth dimensional level. So there are 4 basic dimensions in Umoja: the systems, the enterprise role, the process design, and the workflow. All 4 of them constitute the Umoja interstellar project. Let's take you through one by one dimensions to explain in detail. The first dimension is the systems. All users in Umoja will have access to 4 basic systems: Umoja BI, Umoja Transactions, Umoja Procurement, and Umoja Portal. And all these users are also linked to what is called an organizational entity for them to exercise these systems in those organizational components where they have been assigned. The second dimensional point is called enterprise role. An enterprise role is defined as a set of privileges that can be mapped to a minimum of 1 job function within an organization. Meaning, an enterprise role is an enterprise role, a collective of job function, and not a task by itself. And more than 1 enterprise role can be given to a user, however, you cannot give a part of it. And also, all workflow patterns are aligned to uniquely identifiable enterprise roles. Let me take you to the third dimension of process design. In Umoja, the process is very similar, follows a very similar pattern. It goes like this: you have a preparation of a transaction, you commit, you procure, you prepare to pay, you do the payments, and then you do the reconciliation. And on the HR side, you basically have a request, either it comes from the staff member or an admin staff, and the verification, approval, and the recording. For example, the third dimension process can be explained like this. Initially, you run certain reports so that you can make a requisition or a funds commitment. Then an order follows the requisition, and then invoice, and then the treasury payments through ACH or cash, and the reports are made. And on the HR side, you have a self or admin services through which the transactions are created, and the HR partner approves it, and the record is updated. And if you look into the next dimension of workflow, it takes you into the individual processes. For the requisitioning has a workflow, order part has a workflow, invoicing has a workflow, the cash distribution has a workflow, and also the HR partner approval also has a workflow. So if I put all these 4 dimensions and trying to put it on a paper to give you another way of looking at Umoja project in one page. So you have one side called cost object, which is the grants, funds, cost center, and fund center, which provides money to do certain things. On the right side, you have a master data, which is the employee, material, service, and business partner. And those are all the characteristic objects through which you can execute a transaction. So the flowing of the cost object and master data can result in standard transactions inside the systems. The first part of the transaction is the issuance of budget and allocation of budget from your grants or funds. Then on the one side, we can create a post once you have allocation of budget. Then we can appoint a staff and we can manage a staff, or you can create a pre-commitment and a funds commitment and keep the funds commitment for certain specific purpose. Or you can create a travel request, and basically after the travel request is completed, approved and completed, and you can file an expense report. Or you can create a shopping cart and a requisition, and you can create either a PO for goods or a service PO, and after the POs are consumed, you can create a GRIR or a service entry sheet, as the case may be. With this, the next step is you have to create an invoice. On the payment side, on the funds commitment, expense report, and on the source to acquire, you create an invoice. And on the other side, after managing the staff, you run the payroll. And once it is done, you basically make payments, either a vendor payment or to a staff payment as a part of the salary. If you take this, this is what is Umoja is all about in a 30,000 feet view. You have multiple modules interacting with each other to give you a seamless solution on one page. And the underlying foundation for all these things is the user management, workflow, and reporting, which is my team is partly responsible for that. And my focus is going to be more on that to explain the other features. With this background, I'll take you to specific examples of processes which might be interest to you. And for this presentation, I have specifically chosen the HR or the extension part of the business processes to give you more in-depth analysis and in-depth understanding. And however, the same thing can apply to any foundational process as well. Let's take the personal administration, and I'm going to take hiring consultants or independent contractors. And I'm going to put a magic quadrant, which we know on the top you have the grants, on the right side you have the master data, on the bottom you have user management, workflow, and reporting. The first step is like we are going to verify the budget, make sure the budget is available, and create an internal order which is similar to a funds commitment so that the money stays there, nobody uses it. So that when you start creating the requisition for the consultants, you have enough money in your budget so that you can start hiring and consuming the services. Then the budget is redeployed so that you have the money in your right bucket for you to consume. Then you have a selection process through which you select a consultant or an independent contractors. And then the consultant and independent contractor needs to be created an index number inside the system so that the payments can be made. In Umoja, index number is mandatory for any HR related functions. And index number creation is the basic driver for creation of the business partner through which you need to do the payments. Then the CIC mini-master is created so that after the index number is created, a basic relevant information for a non-payroll staff is maintained. Then the shopping cart is created for the services and a contract is created by the requisitioner and the HR partner. Then the onboarding of the the hired consultant happens. Then once the consultants start working and periodically they do the service entry sheet, and the service entry sheets is approved by evaluated receipt settlements, mostly done by the HR partner CIC, and then the payments are made to the consultants. So this is the process design, and we put the magic quadrant. We know exactly it cuts across various different modules. Then if you look at the small cogs in individual spheres, they represent the workflow processes in those the nodes. In those nodes which has the cogwheel or the people or the nodes which have workflow process inbuilt in them. Then if I take this process and the workflow to the next level, going back to the enterprise role, this is how it looks like. To complete this process, you need these number of enterprise roles assigned to the number of users in your system. So you need to have an FM user, GI requester, HR partner, CIC, requisitioner, AP user, cashier, FM approver, GI approver, and requisition approver, shopping cart approver, and the bank signatory. You need to have at least one person in your entity to have this particular role to complete this process end to end. Now if I take this and go back to my first dimension of systems, and this is how it works. So in all these processes in the first block will be transacted in the Umoja transaction system, and the middle one is transacted in the Umoja portal system, and the left one, the pink one, is Umoja procurement, and all the dashboards and reports, they are executed in Umoja BI solution. I think this will give you a very good idea. So now I take the same model and put it on the employee onboarding. If it is not the consultants, it works exactly the same way. The first quadrant has a job opening candidate application and the selection process, and the generate index number, and the mini master is created. The mini master is created for the very specific reason is like we need to have the employee travel processes to be done by the HR partner even before they report to duty. So you have the medical clearance and the travel and shipment, and they report for duty. Once they report for duty, the letter of appointment is created and the ESS is activated. Once the ESS is activated, this employee, the onboarded employee, can do the staff functions. Again, the cogs explain you the workflows in the system. And the next level, we are going to take you to the enterprise roles. So these are the enterprise roles that are involved in this process. And also remember, in Umoja, in most of the Umoja processes, there is always a section where you will be doing it in an Umoja ecosystem, like the application, job opening, candidate, and medical clearance happens in Inspira. And there are certain things called non-transactional, which are all the processes which happens outside any of these systems. And if I take back to the systems, you have the transaction portal and Umoja recruitment portal, which is Inspira, and Umoja identity services, where your EIDMS activations happens, and the Umoja BI systems. Now I'm going to take you to the next module called organizational management. In the org management, I'll use the temporary movement. The reason I took the temporary movement is, like as I explained, the structural authorization, which defines the HR partner to execute their functionality in one specific area. The temporary movement is tricky because the temporary movement happens between the two organizational units for a staff member, and it will be executed by two different HR partners. The process exactly remains the same because there's a job opening. Because in Umoja, for every staff member to move, they need to have a position. So the position needs to be there, the selection is there, and the travel and shipment happens, and the personal action called lateral movement or transfer or whatever happens, and the staff member reports for duty. The catch here is, again, you have the same enterprise roles involved in this, and all the cog ones, which explains you the workflows, and these are the systems which are involved in that. The complexity is here. The complexity is there are two HR partners who are belonging to two different organizational components. One will be called HR partner receiver in the process, and the one will be called HR partner releasing, and the staff member is usually sticks with the releasing and actually moves to the receiving. So what we have done in Umoja is, like all the movement related PAs, we took it out of the structural authorization, meaning an HR partner in the receiving can access a staff member belonging to another org unit only for the purposes of movement PAs. And that system automatically opens it up and allows the transactions to happen. And that particular membrane, which is in between the organizational units to prevent, is semi-permeable when it comes to movement related PS. I may take you to the travel management, and again I'm going to talk about very specific things, so I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit in terms of the processes. The entitlement travel has these processes. The leave request is created in Umoja time management, and then the trip request is created, and since it is an entitlement, it goes through the HR partner approval, your TSA, which is the travel and shipment approval, who is the certifying officer, and the approval of the trip, which goes to the actual travel processing office. And if there is a shipment involved, the shipment request is created by the shipment unit and it is approved, and it goes for certification one more time so that the shipment can happen based on the approved entitlement travel. And once the staff member completes the travel, the expense report, and it again applies for an on-duty travel, is the expense report can have two variations. One is the express expense report, meaning if your travel is exactly as same as that of the requested and approved, everything is done automatically, and if any deviation, it goes through the separate amount of certification or approval in case if you have a non-UN paid tickets bought in your travel request. And then it goes for the manual claims processing if it has to go for a recertification or reapproval. And again, on the system side, on the enterprise role side, now you can see the enterprise roles, and also you have to see a lot of interfaces which are also going to be a part of the building blocks of travel solutions, like your ticket billing solution and your DSA rate solution and UNLP solution and EarthMed solution for medical services. And if you talk about the systems, and again it is heavily loaded on the portal. 80% of the transactions related to trip creation and approval and expense report recording and approval happens in portal, and the travel claims and other exceptional processing happens in the Umoja transaction system. And of course you have Umoja BI, which is going to provide you all the reporting capabilities. Now, let me take you to the next one. Is called the leave request and approval, which is a very simple process which involves only two people. One is the time administrator or the staff member who can create the leave request. And basically, the leave request is approved by the time manager. And that's it. It's a one simple slide. However, in UN, we have a very complex way of understanding the time management. So I'm trying to give you a more elaborate, extended view on the leave request. And as I said, the leave request can be created into two parts. One is the normal leave request, such as sick leave and annual leave, where the time administrator or the staff member creates the request. The system will take it to the time manager for approval. And there are certain specific leave requesters, which are called special leave requests, such as the R&R, which will be routed to the HR partner. And now, let's see how the approval works. And I take you to the in-depth, which is called the plumbing. So there are like four major roles which gets involved in this application. The time administrators, the staff member themselves, because they are going to do the employee self-service, and they have the time managers and also the HR partner. And all of them are linked to what is called the central nervous system on organizational management, or an org unit. How and what is going to be determining the whole approval process. The staff member is linked to an organizational unit indirectly through a position. The staff member has a position. The position is linked to an organizational unit. And in Umoja, all staff member needs to be in a position. That's mandatory. And same way, the time administrator and the time managers are assigned with what is called an enterprise role, and they're also assigned to a location, in this case a department because it's a lower level, and they are assigned to an organizational unit. So you can be a time administrator for a particular section or a unit, the same way you can be a time manager for a particular section or a unit. And again, the HR partners are also having an enterprise role called HR partner, and they're always assigned at the entity level. The HR partner does not go to the department level. If there is an UNSOA, the HR partner is always at the UNSOA level. UNON, you will have HR partners at the UNON level. There is no way they can go to the specific facilities management department. However, the time administrator and time manager can go to that level. Okay, now we saw the basic plumbing. Let's see how things work. The time administrator or the staff member create a leave request, and the leave request is routed to the time manager, appropriate time manager, and the HR partner, and again based on the org structure. Because when the staff member applies for the leave request, the system understands which org unit it belongs to, and once a request is created, it goes and finds out who is the manager for your org unit who have been assigned based on the enterprise role, and it sends it to them. And same way, if it is an entitlement related or a special leave request, it also finds out the HR partner, the entity level, and routes it to them. And that is the basic workflow approval process. Now, let's talk about certain specific features. The features are, if you have a primary time manager, the primary time manager for a time period, they can assign what is called a secondary time manager. Meaning, I am overwhelmed with the number of staff members who have been assigned to me, and most of my time I'm trying to either look into the team calendar or approving the leave request. So I want to tactically address this. So there are two options. I can create multiple sub-org units under me and assign specific time managers, and I'll be the time manager for the time managers for my sub-units, or I can create a secondary time manager for my org unit who will be doing pretty much a similar task as me when it comes to the time management. So that is the privilege of the primary time manager, to assign and create the secondary time manager in the system for a duration. If it happens, when a staff member requests a leave request, the system automatically sends the approval to both the primary time manager and the secondary time manager. However, the staff member will have an option to select whom should be notified, because the notification email which is sent to the time manager to act on the approval. So if I'm the time manager, if I am the staff member, and when I create a leave request, the system will tell you there are like 3 time managers, 1 primary and 2 secondary time managers, and it will also give the provision for the staff member to select all, to be notified, or only one specific time manager needs to be notified. So in this example, the secondary time manager is notified. So even though the secondary time manager is notified, the primary time manager still has the authority to approve, because the work item for approval will go to both primary and secondary time managers. The next feature is called the exception time manager. There are certain cases in which the staff member is organically reporting to a manager. However, he functionally reports to another manager. So in this case, you want the leave request to go to the functionally reporting manager than the organically assigned manager. So in the system, we have a solution for that as well. The HR partners, exactly for the time period, they can create an exception time manager relationship between the staff member and the exception time manager, and this is done by the HR partner, and it will always happen by the request generated either by the staff member or the manager himself or herself. If this exception time manager is maintained, the routing automatically gets a little bit adjusted. The time administrator or the staff member create the leave request, the system will immediately go and find out the exception table whether there is an exception manager available for that particular staff member. If it is, it goes to the primary time manager. If not, it takes you to the exception time manager as maintained in the table. And again, remember, all these internal plumbings are still intact, that nothing has changed. With this, let's do one more pit stop for remembering certain things. What are the things which we have done in the now system is, one is the employee centric. The staff ownership of requesting personal data, maintenance and change is going to be more and more because of the employee self-service functionalities. And employees, they themselves can identify their roles and relationship with their own access. They don't need any super access to find out what I can do in the system. And also, every staff member can identify their supervisors proactively. So without even creating a transaction, they can find out who are all the travel and shipment approving officers, and who are all their travel processing officers, and who are all their HR partners at any given point in time without even creating a transactions. Number two is workflow driven. The whole application has a huge workflow functionality underneath, and the whole set of processes are driven by workflow. All approvals are driven by workflow. And all the workflow, and again remember, the workflow configuration is part of the design and it cannot be changed during the runtime. Just because you get a leave request and it went to a manager A, and you don't like manager A, you want to send it to manager B, you cannot do it, because by design manager A has been assigned as a primary time manager to the org unit you belong. Number three is the roles and responsibilities and the relationship determine the workflow routing. So even though you are a manager by function, and if you are not correctly mapped with the enterprise role and the relationship, you will not be acting as a manager in the system. And again, this workflow component, understanding of the workflow component and reflecting that in the user access mapping is very, very critical for successful user access mapping and implementation and post go live feature. The next is, again, Umoja is all about change. There is a change in thinking, there is a change in executing, and there is a change in perception. Please take a note. And again, this is the first part of the series of discussion we are having. There will be definitely a subsequent detailed presentations which I'll be posting soon. The pressure points which we have learned over a period of time is the workflow. Again, the workflow is applicable to all portal application and it's not specific to location. An enterprise role can be assigned to a person in New York who can manage all the HR functionalities for the UNON employee. So if the UNON employee requests an HR related function, entitlement related function, the workflow will be routed to the HR partners irrespective of their location. And again, it is in line with the authorized enterprise role. A relationship cannot exist without the enterprise roles. The next one is the Approval Work Center. An Approval Work Center is a powerful tool which has been given to all the employees depending upon their enterprise role they are receiving. And if they are a part of an approver, the Approval Work Center automatically wakes up for in their portal application and brings in all the pending application, not only the pending, it also lists all the completed or draft or rejected items. It also has a sorting and filtering feature so that you can do a little bit of a personalization so that you will always see what you want to see. and you can view the attachments, what the staff member or the any requester has done. And also it has a built-in redundancy in the sense you can have two HR partners operating on the same domain, so same data point, and within that you can tactically assign tasks between these two HR partners. And if one HR partner is uh, not in office, the other HR partner can easily fill in that position to support the workload. The transition or the key change inflectors. In Umoja, all changes are recorded and reported, and we made the standardized transaction processing across the universe, including the approvals, and it has strong local controls based on your user access mapping and your enterprise role assignments. You have a very strong local controls on the processes for your tactical efficiency improvements, and also it has a clear central oversight since we have a monitoring and reporting tools. Factors to be kept in mind: Umoja design can and will satisfy all the business complexities of any part of the UN entity, and there will be a huge workflow shift between based on the new enterprise role that needs to be understood. And there is a clear distinction between the drafting and approvals in each and every application. Some of them are forced and some of them are based on the individual processes. And there's a clear distinction between administrators and approvers. And since Umoja is bringing in the self-services, there'll be a huge encouragement needs to be given and leverage the self-services to reduce the administrated or on-behalf services. And the future. This is the last part, and for that I kind of made my own magical bubble quadrant. I call it as a conscious competence bubbles. Any project, especially SAP project, has four bubbles after the implementation happens. They are recorded as such. The first phase of implementation is called an unconscious incompetence, in which the users, they don't know what they don't know. At this stage of the learning process, the users may not even recognize the benefits of the new Umoja platform, and they are the blank slate ready and waiting for input. And this happens again and again. During the ramp up, the first week of ramp up is purely an unconscious incompetence process. Then they moved on to what is called a conscious incompetence, which in this stage, they'll begin to understand exactly how much they don't understand about Umoja and how their knowledge will benefit in their roles. And mistakes are very common and ultimately helpful in further learning experience. So they move on from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, but then land into what is called a conscious competence. By that time, they will have started to form a solid understanding how Umoja works, and for them as well as for the organization. And they'll begin to form skills that they need to take a full advantage of the new features or the functions for their disposal. That is the conscious competence. They build the competence of whatever they have learned vis-a-vis the system, what they are working and the transactions they are making, and landing onto the fourth stage called unconscious competence. At this point, the necessary skills have been developed to the point where they're becoming their second nature. So they don't need any spoon feeding anymore, because they know exactly what they are looking for and they're exactly what they are doing. And if you see the actual emotion chart of any Umoja, the first ramp up period, the 15 days, they'll be extremely happy because they are in the unconscious incompetence, because they don't even know what they don't know. And then once the conscious and conscious incompetence and conscious competence comes in play, it puts a lot of stress, and you are going to get into the mode of more disgust towards the system. There's a dip which happens usually from 6 to 12 months. Then after that, when you move on to unconscious competence, you're going to enjoy the system, and that's proven time and again in all these processes. And remember, each and every staff member is going to have a journey all the way from unconscious incompetence to a conscious competence over a period of time. And some of them do it in 2 months, some of them do it in 12 months. And again, to reinforce the success of Umoja, defined by 3 different magic quadrants. One is called the strong users, and a master data, and a data discipline, because Umoja processes have been designed to specifications. And one last word is, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated, which is told by a profound Confucius. And I take that as the little example to look at things simple and try to perceive simplicity and execute simplicity. And thank you so much for watching this video. And I hope I have made my point very clear. If at all, at least you will know what a tesseract means. In geometry, the tesseract is a four-dimensional analog of the cube. The tesseract is to a cube as the cube is to a square. Thank you so much. I appreciate, and you keep watching this channel for more information. Bye.